BMAdawg here, and welcome to the second episode of the Boston edition of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that's cool sports. Starting things off, we are going to start off in sunny Florida as the Red Sox are using a lot of their potential starting pitchers. And we got some hot prospects that could make the team. And then, for the first time ever, we're going to start off with some Commonwealth colleges, baby. That's right, BC, BU, Northeastern, and Harvard. We're going to cover college hoops today to see how they're doing in their conferences. And then we're going to shift gears to the revolution of Gillette Stadium had their home opener. How did they fare after their clean sheet last week? And then we are going to go to One Causeway sheet for your reigning, defending champions of the world, Boston Celtics, as they have some injuries and they've been playing with a bunch of tough opponents. How did they fare? And they got some big matchups coming up at home with some of the best of the Western Conference, including a rivalry renewed with the new Los Angeles Lakers. And then we're going to head to the black and gold as the big trade deadline is approaching. Are the Bruins buyers or sellers to improve their game as they're 4 points out from the current wild card spot? Turn up the sound, park your cars. It's time for the Beantown Sports Pound. Woo! Welcome, everybody. I am your host of the Beantown Sports Pound, your boy, BMAdawg. And we got a big show for you today. I'd like to thank everyone who tuned in to the inaugural edition of the Beantown Sports Pound on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all sports, as we got 30 great other programs, regional and national sports as well. They do a great job covering everything. And today we are going to start off, I am still stunned, I'll tell you later. We're going to start off with the Red Sox. Pitchers have been getting their reps in. How are they looking and how are some of the prospects looking? Then we're going to cover college hoops, men and women's, with all four Commonwealth Avenue colleges. And then we're going to go right into the Revolution, which had their home opener for their 30th anniversary, 30th year ever. And then we're going to shift gears to the Boston Celtics, your reigning and defending 2024 champion. They've been dealing with some injuries, and they've been facing some very tough competition before today. And then we're going to switch to the black and gold as breaking news. Fred Frederick has been traded from the Bruins. He's done well. He's beloved in the locker room. Are they going to buy or sell during the trade deadline? As it's a good possibility playoff hockey in Boston could be on its way out. But there's also some shocking news with a Massachusetts native turning against the very kids that support him. We'll have more about that. I will be referencing it. I won't be covering a full segment because it is Boston sports. I want to make that the main focus. But before we start with the opener in sunny Florida, we are going to take a break and have a word from our lovely sponsors.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
All right, everyone, I am back and I cannot wait to get started. Out of our first episode last week, we topped off the Red Sox, and I want to go into the comments section. Thank you, Terran. He is a great influence in IE Sports Radio. He's from the SoCal area. He loves volleyball. You can learn a thing or two about it, and you'll want to stick around later for the preview of a rivalry of the Lakers and the Celtics. He also runs a SoCal show with all the Southern California teams. And I'd also like to get Marcus Lesgreat is a host of one of our boxing and UFC programs, especially if you want to learn a thing or two. That is great to know as well. But let's get started, shall we? All right, before we do that, we also have another sponsor. I would like to thank Planet Jerky, Vital Apparel, Seal the Wheel, Waxdale, and our host, IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all sports. But there is one more sponsor. It is our newest sponsor, Raw Nutrition Supplements at getrawnutrition.com. You can use your promo code IESR for 10% off today. That is right, folks. If you need any protein powders and supplements to help with your health journey, this website is very good and one of our great sponsors. Thank you very much. And you can follow me at my X underscores at my professional page at Beantown underscore IESR and my personal page at BMAdawg 617, our area code. And we also have our supporters club that just launched. If you want to support me in my journey to become one of the best sports podcasters in the country and get more exposure for our station, please support me for $5 a month in our supporters club. Thank you, everyone, very much for tuning in to the inaugural episode last week. But now it's time to go to business. We got the Boston Red Sox. The Boston Red Sox finally have high expectations after John Henry decided to open his wallet. Finally, I know he's busy with all the properties he wants and all the teams, but thank you for actually spending some money this year. We actually look pretty good. I went over last week. You can go back to our inaugural episode about our additions and departures, but one of the things I'm very looking forward to is our starting rotation. We got our players like Cassis, who hasn't been playing every game, and because of the Bregman signing, Devers with injuries hasn't really played this preseason yet or this spring training, which is hard to believe, but hopefully he gets some reps in before opening day. We also have a new addition AL comeback player of the year, Garrett Crotchet. He's been looking really good so far. We also had Tanner Hoke, who's been playing and getting reps. We have Winikowski, who's been getting some reps for us this year in spring training. We also rotate some guys that are potential prospects. Boston has one of the best minor league facilities and minor league programs in the nation, with single A affiliates in Lowell, double A in Portland, Maine, and our newest trip location in Worcester from Pawtucket, the Woo Sox, which a lot of these guys I'm going to talk about have been coming through. And spring training, we're taking a look at some pitchers and prospects for today. We got some top three prospects that in the game against the Phillies went 1, 2, 3 in the batting order, including Roman Anthony, Marcelo Meyer, and Christian Campbell. Most of those guys played each other in Double-A affiliate Portland Sea Dogs. They've been looking amazing. Especially Roman Anthony's been under some controversy in our sports media because one of our sports media guys on 98.5 The Sports Hub has not been happy with the overhypement of Roman Anthony, because obviously he's a real good batter. Three of these guys are top 15 in the country for batting prospects. And supposedly he's mad because he has no defensive skills. But you don't know that for sure. These guys are just getting started, and Campbell has moved up shortstop from single A all the way to triple A in 1 year last year, who's been doing really good. And I am so excited to see these guys play. And Alex Cora said that Yoshida will be playing DH in Florida due to Bregman and Devers talking about second or third base, because obviously with the addition of Alex Bregman, the former Gold Glove and two-time World Series member, he's been getting some reps in. He hit his homer his first appearance on Saturday, which is amazing to see, giving the fan base a ton of confidence, which we need in Boston sports. And Alex Cora said Yoshida will be playing DH because he wants to give these guys some field opportunities, including Trevor Story at shortstop. And we got some of these prospects like Christian Campbell is a shortstop, so he'll be probably getting some playing time. Hopefully these guys come up to the main roster in case there's, God forbid, any injuries. But Marcelo Meyer had his amazing debut, hitting 3 for 3 with a triple and a homer, and he is the number 12 prospect in the world. But The guy who's really been impressing me so far, as I mentioned him earlier, Garrett Crotchet, the big addition we got from the White Sox. Obviously, he didn't end well last year, but he did 2 years ago, played great. But with that organization, it's amazing that he's even able to have the confidence to play baseball again. He had an amazing debut with the Phillies. He struck out Trey Turner, Nick Colastinos, and Brandon Marsh, guys who took the Phillies to back-to-back NLCS appearances, including 2023. They were in the World Series, and that is amazing. Which he went 3 innings, his second out. He struck out 7 guys today against the Tampa Bay Rays. That is awesome. And Brian Bello has been unable to play this spring training so far, due to some ligaments in his injuries. But he's been working with the great Pedro Martinez, Boston Sox legend. Who's your daddy, New York? He's been working on him with his pitching skills and trying to rehabilitate. And I see David Ortiz, Big Papi, a legend, one of my favorite Sox of all time, greatest clutch player. He has his son, D'Angelo, who's been playing in single A, played for Brockton Rocks last year, who was kind of like in between a college and minor program. He'll be playing with the Red Sox in the future. Maybe not this year, but he's been giving pointers to all our hitters. I love to see that. It is amazing. And you got a Tanner Hoke looking average again in the Twins game, but Chapman delivered for the Sox, and he's striking out 2 in the 1 inning. We got him he went to Pittsburgh, then he went to the Angels. He could be a candidate because one of our big issues for the Boston Red Sox, folks, has been our bullpen. They're the reason why we went 81-81 last year and failed to strike out a lot of people, and we blew a lot of leads, left a lot of people in scoring position last year, and that is not good, especially in the AL East. We got to compete with not only the New York Yankees, but we also got to compete with the Baltimore Orioles, Aldi Rutschman in the gang, who's been tearing apart the Red Sox. You got Toronto, who's looking to build up. They got, speaking of the Orioles, one of those guys, Anthony Statander, a catcher. He's coming to Toronto to help one of the great power hitters, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who we have a tough time against every time he comes into Fenway. But you also got the Tampa Bay Rays, who's been on and off in the past. They have the ability to hit and steal bases. But one of the Red Sox biggest strengths, if you check our baseball feed on IE Sports Radio last night, they went over the AL East. Those guys did a terrific job. Support them. They talked about how, due to the hurricane and natural disaster, Tropicana Field is unable to be performed this year, and that will lead into the Rays playing at George Steinbrenner Field, the Yankees spring training facility. Not only do we have to worry about Aaron Judge and the New York Yankees and Garrett Cole in the game, but we also got to worry about all of them in the East. It could affect the team. It may not make a difference, but being used to playing in a dome, going to a field, it definitely impacts if you're an NFL team, don't get me wrong. But it's going to make a huge impact whether this team is ready or not. Connor Wong homered one of his game in his past few games. He's been hitless. Trevor Story has been looking great since he came back from injury. He was a star in Colorado a few years ago, but he missed most of last year due to an ACL injury. You got the guy who's been impressing me the most besides Garrett Crotchet is Ceddanne Rafaela, who's an amazing outfielder for the Sox. He's been looking in center field. He nearly hit a cycle in this preseason. He hit a triple and a home run in one game, and every game he's played, he has a hit. Obviously, you can't get too down if your potential starters aren't getting hits. The whole point of spring training is to get the rust out of the way. And you got Jarren Duran, All-Star Game MVP, who has been looking kind of tough getting warm up, and he hasn't been hitting that well, but I'm not worried about it because he's got a bunch of guys to play with. Hopefully we can get Devers in soon. And a guy who's been going to work his way into the rotation, obviously before the postseason, he kind of struggled with the Dodgers. Newly acquired pitcher Walker Buehler has had the best outing out of all this potential starting pitching. He struck out 4, and he only gave up 1 double and 1 hit in the first inning. And and he won the game because they teared apart the Mets, who didn't have Polar Bear, Pete Alonso, Juan Soto, or Francisco Lindor playing, because it's spring training. You got to rotate potential guys in, see who makes the team, see who's the best potential spot. But before we move on, I will go next weekend to cover the Red Sox more often. I'll try to take a look at their division rivals. We got plenty of more spring training action coming your way. At end of March, we got our opener coming up. I cannot wait to see what our team is like. And we are going to move on. I am going to try something new today. Part of IE Sports Radio core values is to give exposure to local sports that don't necessarily get the viewers or talked about on social media or the viewership, because a lot of people don't know about them. And we are going to start the Com Ave College Challenge. This week, we are going to talk about Harvard, BC, BU, Northeastern. Those are the core colleges we are going to cover going forward on Beantown Sports Pound, as the college kids love to party, but they would also love the exposure as well. They got to do more than they deserve the exposure. And we are going to talk about March Madness. Our sport of the choice today is men's and women's basketball. We are going to start off with the men's of the Harvard, BC, BU, and Northeastern sports. So out of all the men's, Northeastern lead the pack, but all these teams are either a little below average or little above average, but they aren't making the splash in the national divisions to the likes of Louisville, especially Duke. They're top ranked this year, in North Carolina. You got Northeastern's men's, which are 17 and 14. They play in the Coastal Athletic Association. They are 9-9 in conference play, and they play Hampton in the second round this weekend to try. They have to win out to even all these teams I'm listing have to win out to even have a chance at qualification, due to the competitive SEC this year in the college basketball with Alabama, Florida, and you can't forget the powerhouses of Duke and North Carolina. Even as BC, who's 12 and 17, they've been winless on the road this year, 4 and 14 in conference play, and they need one win to get to the 16th seed out of 18 teams in the ACC tournament to get in the play-in, to try and win out and prove the miracle of a lifetime and shock the world. Can they do that? It remains to be seen. There's also BU Terriers basketball, 16 and 15, 10 and 8 in conference play in the Patriot League, and they play Navy in the Patriot League quarterfinal, and they have a chance to win out and get all the way and get an automatic bid. And you got Harvard, who a few years ago had the upset of the nation in 2023. They're 11-15, 6-7 in the Ivy League record, and they just beat arch rival Yale 74-69 this past Saturday, and they're most likely going to miss the cut in the Ivy League tournament, which starting next year, I want to cover more of college basketball. But before we get into women's hoops, I am proud to announce that debuting next week, not only did I say last week we're going to debut the 4 core Com Ave colleges of BC, BU, Northeastern, and Harvard, but we're also going to debut Hockey East coming next week with those 4, as college hockey's been one of our core dominant colleges in the nation, and they have their tournament, men's and women's, next week, and the Hockey East semifinals and finals in a few weeks will be at TD Garden. So I'm going to cover the most 4 that advances all, and this is for all sports. If they make a splash, whether it's softball, football, there's only 2, but we will get to Bill O'Brien in the game in future episodes of BC and the Heights. But we are going to talk about women's basketball coming up right now. The teams that are doing really well from Northeastern, BC, BU, and Harvard. Northeastern has been in the Coastal Athletic Association. Unfortunately, they've been struggling, 2-23. But good news is next year they have an opportunity to get better. Hopefully we can cover them and get their numbers up. You got BU Terrier Women's going 11-17 and 5-12 in the Patriot League. They play Navy next, just like the men's in the playoffs. And BC Women's have qualified for the ACC tournament as the 12th seed. They are 15-16, taking on Syracuse. And the best out of all of them, and it is amazing, Harvard women's basketball is 21-4 and third in the Ivy League Conference. The Ivy League does it differently than the ACC, Patriot League, and CAA. They have 4 teams, the top 4 teams qualify, but that division's so good for women's basketball because if you're 21-4 and you're not the number 1 seed, the top 4, they all have 1 or 2 losses, and they play Princeton this Friday and Saturday for the finals to try to earn the opportunity to get in. They may get in even if they don't win out the tournament this weekend, which is amazing. And I hope next year that we can get more coverage of these teams to get the performance they deserve. I would love to get, not only are we going to cover men's, we are going to cover women's too. We got to give equal opportunities to everybody. And before I move on, we are going to talk about the Revolution. And like I said earlier, next week we are going to do some Hockey East qualification. We're probably going to pair them with the Bruins to try and get the lead-in they deserve. We are going to do it with the Bruins. And now we are going to move on to cover a new team, which we did go over last week. We are going to cover the New England Revolution, the sibling of the New England Patriots in the MLS. That is right. We are going to cover the Revolution tonight. They are coming off a clean sheet with the Nashville Sporting Club. They had a tough outing this past Saturday in their home opener, which was frigid chilly with below 30 degrees, which is very tough for soccer time. But that's the reason why they're opening. They played the Columbus Crew, who is the former team of defensive mastermind Caleb Porter. They took off the Columbus Crew, who defeated the New England Revolution the past 4 times. That's right. They did it the past 4 times. Their next matchups are at home against the Philadelphia Union, which, like the Columbus Crew, are the top 2 in the MLS Eastern Conference. They are tied with 6 points as the Revs have won with a loss this past Saturday, 1-0 and a draw. And then they're on the road at the New York Football Club, the other team with the Red Bulls. There's 2 teams in New York, just like any other sport. But the star players, Captain Charles Gill did the best he could, but they were tied most of the game in the first half, and they fell behind, which they could have taken the lead with 2 yellow cards earlier in the game. But Charles Gill struggled with 5 fouls on the night. Him and Leo Capania were stopped by a bunch of Crew midfielders to convert a bunch of goals. Forward Leo Capania, who has nearly got a corner kick to convert to a goal, had 2 shot attempts, the most of the Revolution. But the lone goal of the night was the Columbus Crew right into the 51st minute of the game. The Revolution defense is really good. As they said, 13 out of the 14 starters are playing home for the first time. So they're going to get confidence, build their playing time, and try to improve their offense, as they are doing really good so far. Even though they haven't scored, their defense has been amazing. You got legend Brendan Bye, who played his 150th career start last week, had 21 completed passes. And it's tough to overcome some of their struggles, as goaltender Ildiaz Ivacic nearly had a second shutout of the season with 2 saves and gave up the one deciding goal. But a free kick by Jason Russell Rowe of the Columbus Crew within right through the second half of the 51st minute. That's all she wrote, as they got down 1-0, and that was history. I like their new pine tree white jerseys. I can't wait to get to Gillette this year to cover a game and learn more about soccer. It is a pretty good showing for their 30th season, but the real big heartbreakers, the refs overturned a call that would have given the Revs a penalty kick to try and tie, but it got overturned thanks to the final minutes of the game, that the Crew member did not touch the handball. A lot of people were booing and upset, but I saw the review. It was a tough one to call, as the midfielder of the Columbus Crew failed to touch it with his hands. That would have given the refs the Revs the opportunity to tie. But the Columbus Crew, they're really good. They beat the Revolution. They got Caleb Porter's number the past 4 times. But the Revs will try to make a stand and try to get their first win of the season, as they got another home game. But it's one of the best teams in the MLS, like the LA Galaxy won the MLS Cup last year. They get the Philadelphia Union, which is one of the best offensive teams in all of soccer in the MLS, as they will try to get some new coverage. And before we get into our commercial break, folks, I would like to let you know I did not forget the New England Patriots, but free agency starts next Wednesday, as we will have some coverage on the potential offensive linemen and receivers we could get. The reason I didn't include the Patriots, because I don't want to repeat myself all the time. I don't want to be like a broken CD that will be like, yes, 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 We don't want to do that. I don't pronounce my as is, and it's kind of controversial being from Boston and not pronouncing your as. But we will get to the New England Patriots next week. We will preview the free agency. And I also want people to go back and watch the first episode who haven't already. I explained how they looked last year and coming into this year, our biggest needs in the draft. I don't want to repeat myself every single week. So that is why we are not covering the Patriots today, because we got all year to cover them. And don't worry, football, you people will be complaining that I talk too much about the NFL and fantasy. But that's the thing that makes the dog go around. And you guys can leave the pound for a little bit, go get something to eat, as we are going to take a commercial break.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy Dentarius Lava.
And we're the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That gives you guys spending time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
The roar of the crowd, the drama and pageantry, the adrenaline rush and decadence of the world of professional wrestling. Join yours truly, the SoCal Saint, for the best pro wrestling podcast going today, the IE Wrestling Show, exclusively on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Join us every Wednesday from 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Once again, every Wednesday, the IE Wrestling Show. It's just too woo!
All right, folks. Like I said, I am BMAdawg. I am your host of IE Sports Radio. For those of you who are just tuning in, we are going to cover the teams from Causeway Street next. We have the Red Sox spring training as our opener. We also debuted some college hoops, recapping the season of BC, BU, Harvard, and Northeastern. I didn't get a chance to watch many games this year, but I'm going to change that next year. And we also covered the New England Revolution home opener. And next week, we are going to do some Hockey East, and we're going to cover the Patriots free agency. But now we are going to talk about, before we talk about the reigning, defending world champions of the world, Boston Celtics, we are also main event the segment of the night will be the black and gold, as there's a big trade deadline coming Friday in the NHL. And we are going to cover every step of the way tonight. And that will be our main event of the evening. And we also got our potential play of the week. Before I talk about the Celtics, happy belated birthday to Jason Tatum, who is out with an injury tonight against the Blazers. But will he be the first ever BMAdawg Beantown Sports Pound play of the week? Let's remain. Will he be the first ever two-time champion? We shall see, as we are going to talk about your reigning defending world champion Boston Celtics. And they had some big matchups since we last met in our inaugural episode. They took on the Detroit Pistons, who had one of the best remarkable turnaround seasons since the 2008 Celtics, when they acquired the Big E of the Big Three of Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen. That is right, folks. That they lost like 30 games in a row last year, and they did pretty well against the Celtics, as they were gassed that night, as they had a big game the night before, but they ran out of gas the second night back-to-back with a 20-point loss, which was the longest defeat of the season. It wasn't Cade Cunningham leading the team. He leads the NBA in assists in the top 5 category, but it was Malik Beasley who lead the Celtics with almost 30 points of the game. But one thing I love about this game last week was the play of the season, potentially, before he got off with an injury. Drew Holiday and Porzingis are currently out with injuries, but he had the place of the season. He had the assist of the season when Drew Holiday looked like he was going to shoot and go for a layup, but he had amazing assists. And Derek White looked like he was launching into the space station and had an alley-hoop three-pointer. There's usually very rare you have alley-hoop three-pointers, just like a penalty shot in hockey. And that gave the swish to try and give the C's a chance to come back. Peyton Pritchard at his 19th game of the season with 5 3-pointers. This man has to be the 6th man of the year or win the NBA Bench Play of the Year. They gave up 24 points off turnovers, which led to the C's having a loss. But the real question is, can the dynamic duo of Tatum and Brown overcome other starting injuries to big Western Conference home teams and a rivalry renewed on Saturday? But before we get into that, we are going to recap some of the games against the top offensive teams of the league, the Cleveland Cavaliers, who's the number 1 team in the Eastern Conference, and the Denver Nuggets, who's also the 2nd seed in the Western Conference, who are the 2023 NBA champions. We are going to talk about those games. Coming into Friday's game, the Cavs and the Celtics were number 1 and number 2 of the Eastern Conference. The Cavs came in with a 6, and not only are they 7-game winning streak, but they have won 11 games in a row. It is amazing. It is a team you can't underestimate. I know they beat the Jalen Brunson and the New York Knicks in the first round last year before we beat them in 5-6 games to the Eastern Conference semifinals before we played the Pacers. They came into this game 3-3 in games with 3 points or under. Unfortunately, it wasn't a 3-pointer under game. They ended up winning by 7. But Jaylen Brown started off with a 3-pointer, and him and Tatum were killing it as they got 83 of the 116 points that game. They had a 25-3 run before choking in the second half. Thank God it's only a regular season game and other guys were hurt. And most importantly, us Patriots fans would like to acknowledge, I am so blessed they didn't get another 3-pointer. I would not want to be in that seat of blowing a 28-3 lead, just like the Atlanta Falcons, which is ironic because the choke machine, or whatever you want to call it, is in Atlanta, Georgia. But we will talk about past games for another day. We'll talk about the present. They rested Tatum for most of the second quarter, but there was a lot of cheap shot on Derek White towards the end of the game when he went to a rebound with Max Strauss, pushed him from behind and it wasn't called a technical, which shocked me. But the players of this game belong to Jarrett Allen, obviously, having the helpful assist to Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley. Donovan Mitchell has become the Celtics' kryptonite when he plays them when they lose some guys to injuries, because he had an amazing 41-point game, and he scored at least 30 points every time he played the Celtics this year, which the Celtics have even the series 2-2 to the Cavs. And you got a fourth quarter performance of a lifetime by Evan Mobley, who had double-doubles with assists and over 20 points, which gave the Celtics a heartbreaking loss. But we had an opportunity to prove to the world Sunday afternoon on ABC, which Nikola Jokic is a star in the making, MVP award last year, and the 2023 NBA champion and All-Star MVP. He leads all categories for the Nuggets in the all Big Three categories of points, rebounds, and assists. And you also had Jamal Murray do most of the work, which led the team with 26 points, while Brown led the C's with 22 points. A bench helped the C's offset injuries, with Nick Quinta going 4 for 5 in his shots, which is amazing for a guy who doesn't get enough playing time. And, of course, Peyton Pritchard in a Beantown 3 party going 3 for 3s, with Sam Hauser on the bench getting the start, going 75% in the three-point attempts. Tatum and Brown did play some amazing defense, combining for 17 defensive rebounds. This wasn't Tatum's best game of the season, but he didn't have to be, because Jaylen Brown stepped up and the bench stepped up because Holiday and Porzingis were out for the game. But they nearly blew a 20-point lead to the Denver Nuggets. Horford played awesome. He shut down the Nuggets right when Jamal Murray was cruising, trying to be the unsung hero, kind of like what Evan Mobley was Friday night for the Cavs, to help a limping Jokic who got injured at the end of the game. Hopefully he's okay. But it is amazing what they've done to this team. Is Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray, and Russell Westbrook are big players. They don't get the credit they deserve. Obviously, Westbrook's kind of a legend, playing with Kevin Durant in the past in the OKC Thunder, but the Celtics have a bunch of big games coming up. I am proud that they went one-on-one, and like I predicted would happen. But we got some big rivalry games and big cupcake games coming up. We are second in the Eastern Conference, first in the Atlantic. Upcoming games are 3-6 versus the Sixers. March 8th versus the Lakers in a ABC national TV rivalry game. They play the last place Jazz, who was kind of like what the Wizards and Pistons were last year, on Monday. And Wednesday, they have a huge game too. Like I said, it's kind of like a sandwich, how you have two of the best teams and 4 teams in the West. You play 3 out of 4 in 2 weeks. You have the legendary LeBron James and the Lakers in one. You got the worst team as the meet, and you've got one of the best teams, number 1 in the NBA right now, the OKC Thunder, with Shea Glorious Alexander, leads the league or NBA with a lot of 50-point games, including the other night, which is amazing. I think the Celtics are going to turn out to be okay. I really do. I think they're going to win 3 out of the 4. Hopefully we go 2-2 at worst, because the Sixers with Joel Embiid less, because let's face it, if you have a pencil, that's like his body, because the guy's a great player, but he breaks down all that money. They got to count on Tyrone Maxey for most of the possession for Embiid's potential missingness. I don't think it's going to happen, because the Celtics do really well against Atlantic Division opponents. But March 8th, the big rivalry, baby. Lakers, Celtics, and they debuted a Max documentary on the Celtics with the past. This may not be Magic Johnson and Bird, or even the late, great Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal and Paul Pierce, but it comes close enough. Tatum's a legend in the making, the most underrated good player in the planet. You also got Jaylen Brown. I'm glad they're resting Tatum tonight. They're only winning by 2 against the Portland Trailblazers as we're looking live. But I'm really glad they're resting him because we need everyone on deck versus the Lakers, as the Lakers had a biggest trade of the season as they traded Anthony Davis, who, like LeBron James, only chooses when he wants to play. And they got Luka Doncic, who kind of gave up on the city of Dallas. But it's even worse for the Mavericks. Not only do they have the most coverage with the Dallas Cowboys, who never delivers them. Heck, the biggest thing in the world happened. It took 20 years to happen, and the Cowboys haven't even been to an NFC championship game since then. You also got Kyrie Irving going out with injury to make the dominoes worse since we exposed them in the NBA Finals last year. But the Jazz, we got Kessler, who's been leading that team in rebounds, even though they're the worst team in the league. But there is some spots you can't overlook that game, especially when you're playing the Lakers and Thunder in between. It's a trap game. You got Shai Glorious Alexander, who's going to look to make an impact on the world champions. They made it last year. History might repeat itself. They swept their first round opponent before losing to the Mavericks in the Western Conference semifinals. He leads the NBA in points and is an MVP candidate along with Jokic, who I mentioned earlier, and Jason Tatum. You got Isaiah Hartenstein, who is their lead rebounder, and they have the top point differential and the second least points allowed in the league, as the Celtics are third. Obviously, the Celtics are a great team with Derek White's one of their best defenders in the game. He would be a starting star somewhere else if he wasn't with the Celtics. He helps make a few threes. He gets a lot of rebounds and steals to help the dynamic duo. But before we go into our main event, the segment of the evening, I would like to talk about how LeBron James is like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I am going to mention it. I can't keep this silent. I'm a big wrestling fan. And Luka Doncic is like John Cena, who was the face of Dallas, kind of. And Cody Rhodes is the whole city of Dallas, as the Elimination Chamber. Massachusetts legend John Cena won the Elimination Chamber, beating Logan Paul, CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and he shocked the world, betrayed all the Make-A-Wish kids he helped, including right before the show in Toronto. It wasn't the Bruins destroying the Maple Leafs. It was John Cena selling his soul to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And we have to cover that. LeBron James is like the final boss of the NBA, like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, as everyone aspires to be on top. He tries to make some business assets outside, including being part owner of Fenway Sports Group with the Red Sox. And Luka Doncic wanted out of Dallas, and Dallas is hurting. And he was like Cena was pretending to congratulate Cody Rhodes, who told The Rock to go F himself right in front of the Toronto crowd, just like the city of Dallas was trying to tell the Lakers to fuck off with that trade to get Anthony Davis, but they ended up doing anyways. And James and Doncic, it's like Cena and The Rock, and they kicked Cody Rhodes right in the balls, which must have hurt so bad. I'm sorry if you people are upset with me covering wrestling, but we do cover all Massachusetts stuff, and John Cena is one of the biggest athletes and celebrities to come out of the Bay State, as he is from West Newbury, Massachusetts. I am a huge Cena fan. I'm not going to get too much into wrestling because we are a Boston sports show. We will cover if we get future pay-per-views or a rumored final retirement match at the TD Garden. You bet your ass I will cover that. But I had to mention it. I couldn't stay silent about it. It shook me to the core. It's a mix of 13-year-old me would have been devastated, like some of these people going viral, having their kids cry about the betrayal of John Cena, the heel turn you could not see coming. We had plenty of heel turns in the city of Boston, which I'll cover. And like in the past, Johnny Damon selling his soul, saving his Jesus-like savior beard to join the New York Yankees. I remember how devastating that was. But anyways, I am shook to my core, and I couldn't stay silent about the topic, so I tried to compare the biggest rivalry in basketball, the Lakers and the Celtics, to introduce this segment. I didn't want to do a huge segment on it because obviously you couldn't see that coming. And we're going to move on to the main event of the evening. Our main event, the segment of the evening, happens to be involving the black and gold, the Boston Bruins. That is right, folks. Before I get to that, thank you, Ralph, for acknowledging my show and supporting me from the very beginning. He is one of our great Pittsburgh shows, the Yinzer Report, I think it's called. He had a phenomenal show. Go back and watch it. He tried to compare segments to the black. He has a lot of black and gold where we only have the Bruins. That is right, folks. They're struggling a lot as well, but we are going to get to one of his teams right now as we're going on to our main event, the segment of the evening, with the Boston Bruins, baby. That is right, folks. The Boston Bruins. We are coming off our worst stretch, one of our worst seasons in probably the past 10 years. But we've made the playoffs at TD Garden for 8 years in a row. We've had a lot of issues this year, unfortunately, as we have been struggling the post-All-Star break, going 1-5-2, including winless at home. Our upcoming games is 6 at the Hurricanes, against the Lightning in sunny Florida, like the Red Sox on Saturday, and home to one of our kryptonites in Boston sports, the back-to-back Eastern Conference and Stanley Cup finalists winning the Cup last year, the Florida Panthers. But before I get into that, I want to recap. We had a big trade with Trent Frederick. And before we get to our player of the week, I am going to recap some of our past games. It all started when we were playing the Toronto Maple Leafs. When we were up 3-0 this past Thursday, as Geeky hit one-timers, Pasternak scored a goal, who is coming on a 17-game point streak that ended Sunday against the Wild. But we also had Morgan Geeky lighting it up as we quieted Austin Matthews, but didn't matter because Mitch Marner had the game-winning goal going 4-3. He actually leads the NHL in assists, believe it or not. He has a super crew in Toronto with John Tavares, as the Bruins aren't even close to the top 3 Atlantic playoff spots they belong to. The Toronto Maple Leafs and the Florida Panthers are tied in points for the top of the Atlantic Conference. And we got the Tampa Bay Lightning, who recovered all their moving on from veterans to their young players, and it's paying off for them because the Bruins have to claw their way back. The Columbus Blue Jackets and the Detroit Red Wings, speaking of those two teams, they had a phenomenal stadium series to the late, great Johnny Gaudreau, former BC College native. It was a great outdoor game. What a wonderful ceremony. We wish he was here. He would have played with Team USA for us. And they are tied at 66 points each to them. The Bruins are 4 games point. They're clawing with the New York Rangers. Montreal Canadiens, the stinking Habs, have won 5 in a row, which they're above the Bruins now. It is our season collapsing like a bunch of dominoes of Jenga blocks. It is very unfortunate as the trade deadline is coming in. We are going to recap the game. The Bruins outshot the New York Islanders, but got down 2-0. They outshot them 16-2 in the first period, but Brock Nelson shoved Lorelei, one of their defensemen, from behind, representing a lower body injury. But Geeky had an amazing game where he had a one-timer, but he broke his stick. But I would like to congratulate David Pasternak for getting his 800th point with a goal in that game, making 14 goals during the 16-game point streak. He is the third fastest player to 800 points in team history, as ironically, we are having a third episode next week at a different start time, which keep tabs on my social media for update. But Kyle Palmieri got his 18th goal of the season, deflected off Brock Nelson's post to get up 1-0 as Pavel Zacha failed on 2 breakaway attempts to score, and he gave up a lot. Ilya Sorokin looked like his former Vezina winning self, getting 37 out of 38 saves. And this was a terrible, terrible game. And Marchand admitted it was a disappointing season as the Bruins ended up losing 2-0 that game. And speaking of the Vezina report and the guy who talked to our team, Ralph, who runs our Pittsburgh show Friday night, we played the Battle of the Black and Gold this past Saturday on national TV against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Sid the Kid Crosby, the legend, Evgeny Malkin, and Brian Rust and Chris Letang of the Pittsburgh Penguins, which starts off with Pasta getting his 17th consecutive point with a hand to forehand flip-flop goal, which is set up by Lorelei, who's going to devolve nicely if they keep him past the trade deadline. But we have some very unfortunate news of the weekend. Brad Marchand got hit pretty bad and left the game, and he's been out since Saturday, and he might be out for the rest of the season, as I hope it's not the end of him in the black and gold without playing at the TD Garden. They allowed their season-high 9 shorthanded goal of the season, but Lorelei had a nice power play goal where he fooled Chris Letang for a deke shot. But the Bruins almost blew a lead like they've been so good at, including the games against Toronto and Anaheim. Toronto this past Thursday and Anaheim a few weeks ago, where they almost blew a lead. They let Pittsburgh come back with a major penalty to go 5-on-3, which Pittsburgh scored a goal from Brian Rust. And Rust had a stick botch with an assist to Raquel, who ended up with that backhand goal. But Charlie Coyle hit the empty netter goal, which sealed the deal for the Bruins. As we are going to move on to the game against the Wild, which Corcello, the backup of Jeremy Swayman, who got paid way too much money this year. I would have loved to kept both him and Allmark. Obviously, if you're paying him that kind of money, you can't. But we should have kept Allmark. Maybe it would have made it. I'm not blaming everything on Swayman this year, but it's just unfortunate how their season gone. He actually played pretty well against the Minnesota Wild, but they lost 1-0. The one game where the defense actually played well, despite having injuries to Charlie McAvoy and former plus-minus leader Hampus Lindholm. They lost 1-0, but they played last night against a team who needed to get back on track against, is the Nashville Predators, who flipped Forsberg in the game. Steven Stamkos, the former Tampa Bay Lightning legend who won a cup with them, he was also at one time one of the world's renowned top 3 players with Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin. Speaking of Ovechkin, I'd like to congratulate him for being 11 goals away from tying or breaking the great one, Wayne Gretzky's record. It started off 13 games without a point. With who would have thought someone like Steven Stamkos of the Predators would go that long without a point? But the defense blew their neutral zone with Ryan O'Reilly, who got a goal and 2 assists in that game. And Stamkos also got an assist, and he had a really good goal, snapping his point streak in the second period. The Predators came into the game with a league worst -25 goal differential in the second period, which is very unfortunate. But Flip Forsberg had them 81 miles per hour shot, which kind of fooled Jeremy Swayman and Brendan Carlo in their defense. Very good. Pasternak did complete his 12-game home point streak, as he did get an assist, and Morgan Geekie got a goal. So did Charlie Coyle. But let's get into the big topic of the season. We have a trade deadline, but I'd like to preview some of their upcoming games first, as we're almost out of time. We got Sebastian Aho and the Carolina Hurricanes, who are number 2 in the Metropolitan Division, right behind the Washington Capitals. We also got a big matchup with the Tampa Bay Lightning, who's become such a great team. Obviously, they've had success in the past, but it's an amazing statistic that is kind of mind-blowing the more you think about it. The Eastern Conference the past 5 years had had their Stanley Cup teams represented by the state of Florida. Who would have thought this 20 years ago? I'm sure the Canadian teams are not happy about that, as they've gone 31 years without a cup, but I'll get more into that in a little bit. The Lightning are third in the Atlantic with 76 points and is led by their new face of the franchise, who they moved on from Steven Stamkos, with Nikita Kucherov, who is second in the league with assists with 60 and has had the top 3 points getter with 87. Ben Hagel has also emerged as a 30-goal scorer, and Braden Point has over 30 goals and assists. These are like NHL All-Stars face of the franchise type stat. And defense has been led by Ryan McDonough, who's been with the Tampa Bay Lightning a long time, who's lead the league in hits and plus and minuses. But also they have some of the best goaltending in hockey right now, which we thought Jeremy Swayman was going to do back-to-back years. But as Andrei Vasilevskiy, who as a goaltender has 29 wins, and I think it's going to be a rough stretch for the Bruins. If you think the Lightning are rough, they go back home and face what's been the Boston sports kryptonite, the Stanley Cup champion, the reigning and defending champion. I am not going to do an enthusiastic tone just like the Boston Celtics, because the Celtics are my team, unlike the Panthers. They have broken hearts around Boston hockey, around the state and the region of New England. They lost Matt Tkachuk for the Four Nations face-off. He might come back which should help the Bruins, but it doesn't matter. There are plenty of Bruin killers on this team, including Carter Verhaeghe, who not only killed the Bruins with a hat trick past 2 years in their playoffs, he also scored the game-winning goal to end our historic point season for any regular season record in NHL history, as we have blew a 3-1 lead that year, and that's all she wrote for Patrice Bergeron's hockey career, which is extremely unfortunate. But Sam Reinhart, the captain and center of this team, has led the Panthers in points with 64 and has 31 goals for the Panthers. So even though they lost Brandon Montour, star defenseman, to Seattle, it doesn't matter because Alexander Barkov also leads the team in assists. And they have Vezina candidate and leads the NHL with the least goals against average and all goaltenders, Sergei Bobrovsky. But we are going to, before we end the show, we have a big segment involving the Bruins breaking news. Trent Frederick, who's been with the Bruins for almost 8 years, have been gotten trade. They already made a trade deadline move, and it's not even Friday yet. He got traded to the defending Western Conference champion Edmonton Oilers. That is right, folks. He gets to play with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl to try to win a cup, because there's a strong possibility you could get an Oilers-Panthers rematch for the Stanley Cup final, as I think whoever's going to represent the East is coming from that Atlantic division, unless maybe the Capitals. But Ovechkin, besides the year they won the cup against the Golden Knights, has a tendency to not show up in the playoffs. Trent Frederick got traded to the Edmonton Oilers for defensive prospect Matt Warner, as he is known to be a shutdown defenseman in the minors he played, which is good because we are getting to a final main event segment of the night with the Bruins, and we got a second and fourth pick. Don Sweeney has run the Bruins, and he's given up so many picks to get guys like Rick Nash over the years. Tyler Bertuzzi a few years ago, who I wish they kept, who is on the Red Wings now, I believe. I really wish we kept some of these guys because we're giving up a bunch of draft picks because we've had superstars like David Pastrnak and Brett Marchand and Charlie McAvoy in defense. But I think it's time to move on. If we're going to give up guys, I do not want to see Geeky go. I do not want to see Pastrnak go, which I don't think he'll go anyways. But Brad Marchand's an unrestricted free agent. And I do not want to see hometown native Charlie Coyle go. But unfortunately, if I had to pick a few guys to Dale, I would Dale Brandon Carlo. I know he's been our defenseman since the Zdeno Chara days, but it's time for them to get younger on defense, and we need guys who are very physical. Not saying Carlo isn't, but he doesn't have the mentality like most of the team to be very physical this year, and it is unfortunate, but I think they're going to be sellers. If I had to pick, I would pick Pavel Zacha to get traded. Yeah, he's made some nice goals and assists for the Bruins, but he's played awful this year. A lot of the team hasn't been potential. But if you take away star player David Pastrnak, the Bruins might have been the worst team in the NHL this year. Those core star players like Marchand or Pastrnak, who's unfortunately out, like Charlie McAvoy, kept the Bruins not only competing in a playoff spot, which feels like we're a lot more than 4 points out of the final wild card, but it feels like we're struggling too. We'd be the worst team in the league. Like, I don't want to be like the Chicago Blackhawks, who had a tough time moving on, even though they got star prospect Connor Bedard, who's supposed to be the next great with Connor McDavid. He also has a lot of stuff to work on, as the Blackhawks are still missing the playoffs every year since they moved on from Teos and Kane past their prime. And they won a few cups, but one of them they shouldn't won when they let in 2 goals in that Game 6. It still breaks our heart, as we only won 1 cup since 2011. You take away that, the Bruins would have been known for choke artists. I covered what I need to cover. And before we take one break to preview next week's episode and reveal my play of the week, I'd like to go to the comments section. And yes, Ralph, the battle of the black and gold went to your Bruins, but the ice looked great with the colors. Hell yeah, I love the black and gold color scheme. Pittsburgh has some great colors. I love yellow. It looks so good, especially who doesn't love some gold, right? We are going to take one final commercial break before I reveal my play of the week and reveal my stats for next week's episode. So don't go anywhere yet, folks.
What's up, everybody? This is Taryn Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunder Spikes? Then I have the show for you, Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
All right, folks, it is time for my BMAdawg Play of the Week. The real question is, can Jason Tatum become not only the first-time, two-time winner of my Play of the Week? He was the inaugural winner last week because he got a bunch of triple-doubles in his game. But who is the Play of the Week this week? Well, we have a two-time winner, as his birthday was yesterday. So happy birthday, Tatum. Drum roll, please. Who is it? It is a Boston Bruin, as you see my yellow color scheme. And it is, this person has, obviously I've been talking about him a lot tonight. I gave a Celtic last week. I have the rest of the season as they're most likely going to go to a deep run. But I got David Pastrnak as my player of the week. First ever Bruin to win this prestigious award. You'll see, folks, I got a plan with my play of the weeks, but you got to keep up with me. You got to keep up with everything. This is a no-brainer because even though the Bruins been struggling, like I said, the past 2 weeks, if it wasn't for him, we'd be bottom last. He is a top 5 goal scorer in the NHL, and behind guys like Leon Draisaitl and all of them. But he has kept us competitive. He plays his heart and soul every game this year. It is unfortunate we are struggling this year. But David Pastrnak is a Beantown Sports Pound Player of the Week, joining Jason Tatum, as we got one Celtic and one Bruin so far as my Player of the Week. My honorable mentions was obviously Peyton Pritchard because he's been shooting a lot of threes. And if you count, if this were regular season, I would say Garrett Crochet for striking out so many guys in his spring training outings. As we are going to wrap things out, folks, thank you so much for tuning in and making history in our second episode. Thank you for putting up with the shocking news about Massachusetts legend John Cena. And we are going to end things tonight, folks. That is right. We are going to end things tonight. And next week, we got the preview. We got some Hockey East men's and women's as our Commonwealth College Challenge goes to hockey. We are going to talk about the trade deadline for the Bruins, what moves they made. Patriots return as we have free agency. See what kind of receivers, offensive linemen are out there, even some defensive stars we could possibly get with the picks and the drafts coming up. The Celtics have a rivalry renewed with the Los Angeles Lakers. Let's see how they look despite Tatum being out tonight. And we got some Red Sox spring training coverage continuing next week as we are making history. And thank you for tuning in the second episode of the Boston IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sport. And we are signing off. Woo! BMAdawg signing off.